Smoke Rings Radio from the Lighter Than Air Ministry.
Where do they go, the smoke rings I blow each night? Oh, what do they do, those circles of blue and white? Why do they seem to picture a dream of then? Why do they fade, that phantom parade of love?
Smoke Rings, ladies and gentlemen, the fabulous Mills Brothers. All those sounds were made with their voices, all the noises with the exception of a guitar. The Mills Brothers. You know, folks, I'm Chaplain Dennis Keith Hale, and I'm here in the music sanctuary of the Lighter Than Air Ministries. And this is an edition of a show that we're going to have now and then called Smoke Rings. And this has been manifested from our concerns here at the ministry about people having the opportunity to try marijuana or cannabis products in any way for the very first time. So we want to address first-time smokers and first-time tokers, I guess. You know, having a spiritual connection to anything you do is definitely a plus. Having some sort of program that you can go to click on and have it direct you and give you steps as you try marijuana for the very first time. You know, I can remember my first time. I was quite disappointed, as a matter of fact, because I had budgeted the money out of my Social Security check. As a kid, my mom and dad had passed away, and I received a monthly Social Security check because they didn't. And I would go out and find some pot. And that was my idea. I was going to save up and go out and find some pot. And I really didn't know where to look. So, being a white bread kid from the city of Hartford, Connecticut, I decided to go into the African American neighborhoods, which were distinctly set into the north side of Hartford. As traveling up Blue Hills Avenue, I saw some people who were standing around who looked perhaps like they were even smoking a joint of marijuana and passing it between themselves. So I drove up in my car, which was a 59 Chevrolet with giant bat wings. It was a sedan, and it didn't have a pillar post between the front and back windows. And whenever I would be going at an accelerated speed, anything above 60, this loud whistle emanated from the window gap. Well, so there I was. I was in the north side of Hartford on Blue Hills Avenue, and I approached this group of men who looked like I had just come from another planet. I was a 16-year-old kid. I had short hair, as was the fashion back then, back in the 60s, early 60s. And I was driving around trying to find marijuana. I wanted to so badly. I wanted to get high. Just the notion of that word, get high. And there were songs about marijuana I'd heard. I'd even researched it. I'd gone to the Wells Library, the public library, and researched marijuana. And I even asked a librarian if she knew where I might find some information, thinking that librarians, of course, are open-minded. Well, she was not open-minded. She said, we probably don't have anything about that crap in here. So already my anticipation was being charged because the older people were agin it. And if the older people were agin it, I was going to do it because I was young. A young buck, a rebel. Hardly. I worked in a grocery store, and I worked very hard for every penny I earned. So here I was driving around, and I looked in my rearview mirror, and there was a car flagging me down. There was a car full of men flagging me down, and I didn't know what to do, so I pulled over, and they got out and came to my car and said, "What are you doing here? What the hell are you doing here?" And I explained that I wanted to try marijuana, and I couldn't locate any, and in my research it said it was prevalent in the African American communities, and we had one, so I went there. No, there were no stores, believe me, selling it or anything like that. And this guy kind of looked at me like, what the hell? And I realized he was one of the guys in the group from before that I had approached. This was about 20 minutes later, actually. And I've been driving around sort of all the blocks. Actually, I had never been there. And so I had been everywhere else in this city of Hartford, Connecticut, and I had never been there because as a child I was warned, actually, not to go there, which should have made me want to go there anyways, but I had to wait until I had a mission, I guess, and I sure did. So here I was being flagged down, and the fella came to my car and was saying, "What the hell are you doing?" And I looked at him. I didn't have an answer, really. I said I was looking for marijuana. And he shook his head, and it turned out he was a pastor. And he told me that I should go home, that I was crazy and I for trying to do this. And so I started towards home, and I was going back towards the freeway, which had just been built. It had just opened a few days earlier, and I had never been on it. At least that aspect of it, that direction of it. So I decided to try for the freeway, and as I got lost again, trying to find how to get onto the freeway, and I could see the freeway, and then I saw another car in my rear view flagging me down. I said, "Oh no, what now?" And so I pulled over, and not even worrying about my safety. I just didn't think I needed to be worried. And this man said, "Kid, I heard you're trying to buy some grass." I said, "Yeah, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to." He said, "Well, how much do you want?" I said, "What?" He said, "Well, we've got grass, and you seem like a good guy, so how much do you want?" I said, "Well, I have $15. He said, "Well, I'll sell you a lid." A lid. I said, "Well, sure, a lid." So he gave me this little baggie right there on the street, and in front of some brick residence on, I think it was Ashley Street at that point. And next thing I knew, he was gone, and I was standing there. Well, now I got paranoid. I was sure this was some sort of setup, that the cops were going to get me. And, we were really frightened of the cops when it came to this stuff back then. Well, so I had my weed, and away I went. Now, where and how to smoke it. Now, this is important. This is an important part of this smoke ring show, because really, this was my first time. I had taken a few puffs with somebody else, but I didn't really understand it, and I guess I didn't really inhale it because nothing happened. That's why I was disappointed. So here I was. I had my own lid. I looked at it, and it was fantastic. It actually looked like a plant. It wasn't just all ground up like what I had seen before. It almost looked like a store parsley or something, all red and all green, Well, this was not. This was something else. And I could see, actually, part of the plant. There was no leaves, it didn't seem. Well, I went home, and I went into the preparation phase. And I can only tell you, preparing it has always been something I enjoyed. You know, we have these grinders and such now. But back in the day, we used to spend time with our hands breaking everything up. And there was a period where before you smoked, you had this moment where you had to prepare it. So I did. And I decided to go to a park that was sort of private, in that I had to sneak over a fence to get to it. I drove out to this place, which later became Williams Park, in the suburb of Glastonbury. And there was an 8-foot-high chain-link fence topped by 3 strands of barbed wire. But I had found a way through the gate, thin enough at the time, I guess, to get through there. And I found a way, and there was a dirt road that led you through a forest of pine trees. And there was a little, small service pond of some sort. And around the edge was all sorts of turtles and dragonflies, and I decided this would be my spot. I was sure, a little afraid actually, that some sort of custodian or whatever would track me down and find that I was in there, but on this beautiful day, and what a contrast. I had driven from I'll have to call it the ghetto of North Hartford. But now I was in this beautiful setting. The Williams Company had a big presence in Glastonbury. They made a lot of their products, J.B. Williams, Menon products. And I don't know if this was in any way associated with that, other than that the family, the J.B. Williams family, had the land. So I took my prepared marijuana and I put it into a brand new pipe that I had bought. It was a brass water pipe. And I looked like some sort of sheik or sultan, I guess, with this thing. And it would bubble as you draw the smoke in. It would bubble, and my girlfriend at the time, I think, called it a bubbler. The bubbler. But maybe she wasn't my girlfriend. I wish she was someone's girlfriend. For fear that she's listening to this somewhere, or her lawyer is, I won't go any further. But nor would I want to disappoint other girlfriends I had. I was a lucky fella. You know, I always have been. And I got lucky that day because I got some weed that was unlike any weed I would buy for years again. And it made my travels into the north end of Hartford really worth it. So I put in my water pipe, sitting by the water's edge, and I started toking. And of course, we didn't have portable lighters back then or anything like that, and I had a book of matches, and I realized I only had 3 matches left in that book of matches. So the first one I struck, and I toked, and I toked, and soon it was just ash, and I was in outer space. I was feeling the warmth of a breeze on my back, and I had long hair at the time, and I could feel my hair blowing across my back, and I looked over, and there was a turtle, and I said, "This is sublime. This is a feeling that I'm sort of communicating with nature, even in a more sophisticated form." It's always worked like that for me, too.